الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وقائدنا وقدوتنا وقرة أعيننا سيدنا محمد أدى الأمانة وبلغ الرسالة ونصح للأمة وكشف الله به الغمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين وتركنا على المحجة البيضاء ليلها كنهارها لا يزيغ عنها إلا كل هالك فصلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد فيقول الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه العزيز يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him for His guidance and we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil within our sins. And we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil within our souls. Whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided, then no one can misguide. And whomsoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen misguidance for, then no one can guide. I bear witness and I testify that there is no Lord worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I bear witness and I testify that our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last and most beloved prophets to Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Holy Qur'an, addressing the believers, addressing the mu'mineen, O you who believe, fear Allah the fear He is most deserving of, and do not die except in the state of Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with the ni'mah of Islam and to continue this ni'mah upon us and to die on the kalima of La ilaha illallah. For as our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, whoever's last words in this dunya is La ilaha illallah, dakhal al-jannah, he will enter into paradise. My dear brothers in Islam, as we come to the ending of another Hijra year, as we come to the end of this year, and we remember this great event that took place in the history of Islam, which is the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca to Medina, and the migration of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een from Mecca to Medina, and this great event that took place in the history of Islam, and a changing point not only in Islam itself but in the whole civilization of mankind. For the Hijra of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not only benefit the Muslims itself, but it benefited the whole of mankind. And to study the Hijra of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is of utmost importance to the believers. And it is not only the Hijra of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we look upon and we learn lessons from, but it is also from the Hijra and the migration of the companions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them. and we look and see the preparation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prepared the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to migrate from the most holiest of lands to the Medina, which was called, before it was called al-Madina al-Munawwara, to a city which was called Yathrib. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, during his period in Mecca, he went through many hardships. And he went through many hardships from the people of Quraysh. And it is the hardest of hardships that a person can go through, when these hardships are coming from the people that you were born with, from the people that you have lived with, from the people that you raised with, from the people that you were with your whole life. And we're not talking about a small period of time, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not receive the prophecy until he was 40 years old. So he had lived with these people for that period of time where he was known as as-Sadiq al-Amin, the most trustworthy, the most trust of speaking, the most one who has the most eloquent of speech. He was the most trustworthy. For 40 years, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lived amongst these people. This is why it is the hardest of hardships that comes to a person when it comes to the one who is close to you. When it comes to the one whom you have invited into your house. When it comes from the ones whom you have married your children to. So the hardship, and we can only imagine a small portion of this hardship that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went through. And after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went through these hardships, he went to Al-Ta'if, to this city which was out of Mecca, and he went and he gave them da'wah, and they turned him away. The great story and the great event that is known to all of us in the Hijra of Al-Ta'if, where he was rejected. And the rejection from Al-Ta'if is only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had chosen a certain people to accept and to be the ones who welcomed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to their city and who welcomed him into their houses. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He chose the ones who would give victory to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after Quraysh had turned their backs away from him. And we come to the season of Hajj, where all the tribes used to come to Mecca. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he meets with a group of people from Al-Ansar. He meets with a group of people from Medina. And he gives them da'wah. And they accept the da'wah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this group of people, they return to Yathrib, they return to Medina, and they start to give da'wah to their people in Medina. So when they went back to Medina, there was not a house in Yathrib, in Medina, except that the news of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in their houses. And then the year that came after that, which is known as the year in which the event took place of Al-Aqaba al-Ula, when they came back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they met with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam again, and they gave bay'ah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they returned to Medina. And this is all preparation for what? Preparation for the coming of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Medina. And then they came Bay'atul Aqaba al-Thaniya, where the two greatest tribes of Medina, Al-Aws wal-Khazraj, they came and they met with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there was just over 70 men and about 4 women who came with them. And they gave the bay'ah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this was the initial da'wah that happened. in which Medina, the doors opened for the Prophet ﷺ to make Hijra to Medina. And the difference between the people of Mecca and the people of Medina. Why did the people of Medina accept the da'wah of the Prophet ﷺ? Even though there are people who don't know him. Even though there are people who have not lived with him. Where the people who have lived with him and grew up with him for so many years, as soon as he called to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they rejected him and they boycotted him and they tortured him and they slandered him. But the people that did not know him, they accepted his da'wah. And they gave, or they were given that great attribute of being called the Ansar. Why was this? This goes back into the nature of the people of Mecca and the nature of the people of Medina. And anyone who has gone Hajj or has gone to Hajj, he will touch a glimpse of this when he goes to Mecca and he goes to Medina. But before this, a very important aspect in the people of Mecca and the people of Medina is that the people of Mecca, there were a people who the knowledge of the book, of the sacred books, there was a far time between them and that knowledge. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Yasin, He says, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. To call upon a people of Quraysh, لِتُنذِرَ قَوْمًا مَا أُنذِرَ آبَاؤُهُمْ. That their fathers, their forefathers have not been what? Have not been called to this da'wah. فَهُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They do not know, they have no what? They have no knowledge of this. Whereas the people of Medina, there was people of Ahlul Kitab there. There was the Jews in Medina. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about the Jews, about Ahlul Kitab in Medina. وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ كِتَابٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقٌ لِمَا مَعَهُمْ. And when a book came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with exactly the same of that which they had themselves in the old scriptures. وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. And before this, the Jews, one of the reasons that the people of Medina, they entered into Islam is because the Jews and the Ahlul Kitab of Medina, they used to always warn al-Aws wal-Khazraj, they used to always warn them and say that there is a prophet that is going to come and he is going to give victory to us. Because al-Aws wal-Khazraj, they had control of Yathrib, of Medina. وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Before that, they used to warn and tell the people of Al-Khazraj and Al-Aws and tell them that there is a prophet who is coming to us and we are going to defeat you and we are going to be victorious. وَكَانُوا مِنْ قَبْلُ يَسْتَفْتِحُونَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ مَا عَرَفُوا كَفَرُوا بِهِ فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. So when the news came and the prophecy came of the Prophet ﷺ, that which they knew, فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ مَا عَرَفُوا, they knew this, كَفَرُوا بِهِ, they didn't accept it. فَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. So verily the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the kafirin. So they wanted to accept this prophecy knowing that the Ahlul Kitab in Medina were not going to accept the prophecy of who? The prophecy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The two leaders of Al-Aws wal-Khazraj entered into Islam. Sa'd ibn Mu'adh and Usayd ibn Hudayr radiyallahu anhuma. The two leaders of these two great tribes. And as soon as a leader enters into Islam, it is only known that the followers of this tribe are going to enter into Islam with their leader. They are going to enter into Islam with their leader. After the second bay'ah took place, my dear brothers in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he started to allow the Sahaba to do Hijra, to do migration. For there were many Sahaba who did migration before the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I will mention two stories with regards to the migration of the Sahaba so that we can understand the importance of this migration and what these companions they gave up for the sake of following the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we might learn from this. Abu Salama radiallahu anhu and his wife Salama and their child, they prepared themselves to do Hijra to Medina, to escape from Quraysh and to escape from the people of Quraysh. As Abu Salama prepared his family to do Hijrah, the people of Quraysh, they stopped him. A man and his wife and his child, his son. They stopped him and they took his wife as hostage and they allowed him to go. They allowed Abu Salama to go to Hijrah and they took his wife and they took his son. They took his wife and his son. But this did not keep Abu Salama radiallahu anhu from what? Did not keep Abu Salama from what? From doing his hijrah and doing his migration, knowing in his heart that because of this sacrifice and because of this oppression that has befallen him, the iman that was in his heart, he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reunite him with his wife and with his child. And for 1 year, Salama and her child were hostage. And every single night, Salama radiallahu anha, she mentions that every single night I used to go out and I used to cry. A woman has been what? A woman has been separated from her husband. And she has been separated from her child. For she was kept alone. She was separated from her husband and from her child. So one of the leaders of the tribes that took her, after seeing this continuous, he went to the people and he said, "O people, if you look at the condition of Salama, you should let her go and let her reunite with her family." So the people of Quraysh, even the tribes, subhanallah, and this is a characteristic that they had, even the tribe of Quraysh and the people and the tribe, the different tribes, their heart was soft. So after seeing this, they allowed her to go. And she grabs her camel and she's going from Mecca to Medina by herself with her child. And on the way, she meets a man who was not a Muslim, who had not entered into Islam yet. On her way, she met a man by the name of Uthman bin Talha bin Abi Talha radiallahu anhu. But at that time he had not entered into Islam. And Salama, she says that during our migration I saw something from this man that I have never seen from anyone else. He said this man would come and when it was time for us to sit down and to rest, he would put my camel down and he would turn his back and he would walk away. And he would tell her to get down and he would not look at her. And as soon as she got up, he would go, take the camel, take it away, and he would sit far away from her. And he would console himself, he would sit behind the tree, and he would not even look at her. Look at the characteristics of these people, even though he was not Muslim at that time. And every time he would come up to leave, he would bring the camel, sit it down, walk away, wait until I got up onto the camel, and then he would come and he would take the camel and he would walk me. Uthman bin Talha bin Abi Talha radiallahu anhu. Look at the manners and the adab of these people. Even though at that time he was not Muslim. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blessed him with Islam, Aam al-Fathi, in the conquer of Mecca. Another companion who is known as Suhaib al-Rumi. As-Suhaib al-Rumi, one who came from the what? From the Roman lands. We had Salman al-Farisi and Suhaib al-Rumi. Suhaib al-Rumi, he came to Mecca and he gathered wealth and he gathered property and he entered into Islam. And Suhaib al-Rumi was preparing himself to migrate. And as he was preparing himself to migrate, the people of Quraysh, they caught him. And they told him, "Oh Suhaib, you came to us poor with nothing, and now you have gathered wealth and you want to leave. You think we are going to let you leave?" So Suhaib al-Rumi, he says, and look at the Iman, look what the Iman does to the believer. He says, "I will give you all of my wealth, and I will give you all of my property. I will give you everything that I own. Would you let me leave? Would you let me go?" They said, "Yes, if you give us everything you own, everything you have, all of your wealth, then you can go." So Suhaib al-Rumi, without even thinking of the matter, he gave up his entire wealth and he never looked back. And when the news reached the Prophet ﷺ about this, he said, "Rabiha Suhaib, Rabiha Suhaib." Verily, Suhaib is victorious. Verily, Suhaib has won. Verily, Suhaib has won. The transaction that took place is a transaction in which Suhaib, he won it by far. And he won it by many legs. Given up his wealth, given up everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Hijra of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came. And he chose Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And when he informed Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, you can imagine he was sitting and he's waiting. He'd already prepared everything, prepared the camels, prepared everything. And he's sitting and he's waiting. And he wants the companionship. He wants the suhbah. He wants to be with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during this migration. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he comes and he says, "It is time." So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he says, "As-suhbah ya Rasulullah, as-suhbah." Let me be your companion, let me be your companion. He says, "You will be my companion." Imam al-Layth bin Sa'ad, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that no prophet and messenger before the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has ever had a companion like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was a companion to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No other prophet and messenger had a companion that came similar to that of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. This was part of the great migration of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from Mecca to Medina. There are many lessons for us to learn from this migration, and it is very important that we listen and we read upon this great event that took place in the history of Islam and the history of civilization. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله حق حمده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي من بعده. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي المخطئة بتقوى الله فهي خير وصية وهي خير زاد وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى. The migration of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam opened the door for the migration of the Sahaba. And just to understand the importance and the level of those the honor of those who attained that level of being called from the Muhajirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that the ones who did the Hijra are the ones who gave up their wealth and they fought fi sabilillah before the opening of Mecca are not equal to those who gave wealth after the opening of Mecca. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mention here the opening of Mecca? Because the opening of Mecca, it closed the door of what? The opening of Mecca closed the door of migration. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, لا هجرة بعد الفتح ولكن جهاد ونية. There is no hijrah after the conquer of Mecca, but jihad and intention. But the hijrah, in its more broader understanding, has never been closed. The hijrah, in a more broad understanding, has never been closed. The Prophet ﷺ, he says in the hadith narrated by Imam al-Bukhari, "Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi," that the Muslim is the one whom the Muslims are safe from his tongue. Min lisanihi wa yadihi, and his hand. The Muslim is the one who the Muslims are safe from his tongue and from his hand. And this is something that we need to work on. وَالْمُهَاجِرُ مَنْ هَجَرَ مَا نَهَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُ. And the muhajir, you want to be a muhajir? You want to be a migrator? Al-muhajir man hajara ma naha Allahu anhu. The migrator is the one who migrates away from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbade. You want to be a muhajir, a migrator? Then you must migrate from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made forbidden. Another hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad, he says, "Al-mujahid man jahada nafsahu fi ta'ati Allah." The true mujahid is the one who gives the jihad in the what? In the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before he gives the jihad somewhere else. Man jahada nafsahu fi ta'ati Allah. وَالْمُهَاجِرُ مَنْ هَاجَرَ الْخَطَايَا وَالذُّنُوبِ. And the migrator, the true migrator, is the one who migrates away from the sins and the bad deeds. Mighty brothers in Islam, this event of migration and the ending of the Hijra year is a time in which we need to reconnect ourselves with the history of this great deen of Islam, and to teach ourselves and to teach our children, especially now we are in what? We are in holidays. We are in school holidays. We need to take the time to teach our children, especially when events like this come around. To teach our children these great sacrifices that these men, these Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ, they went through, so that they grow up and their role models and the ones whom they look up onto and the ones whom they read about and they want to be are these companions and not these other people, unfortunately, that our kids are growing up to want to be like, and our kids are trying to imitate. And if we do not teach them, then who is going to teach them? If we do not teach them about their deen, if we don't connect them with their Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we don't teach them to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to love the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to follow in their footsteps, who is going to teach them? And you look and you see, and the evidence is out there. It is a responsibility upon us, a responsibility that is upon us to what? To teach our children. To teach our children the deen of Islam. Before you teach your child that he has to pray, you teach your child to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to love His Prophet, and your child will pray by himself. Before you teach him and you order him to pray, you tell him, get up and pray. Before you teach him this, you teach him to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to love His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and to love his companions. This is how we can bring up a society of men and of women who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who their basis, their principle is what? Is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love of His deen and the love of their Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
يا لا 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 يا لا 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 لا